Hello and welcome to NextOppSocial. We are your hosts, Richelli White, Wright, Joanne Buford, and Nina Payne. We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and we are committed to the development and progress of entrepreneurs, providing you with the information you need to build thriving businesses. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Arlena Minter, AVP and Market Development Manager for Level One Bank. So welcome, Arlena.
Thank you. I'm no longer with Level One Bank.
Oh, you're not? Okay. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Well, this intro is good then. We'll have you dive in. Tell us about yourself and your background rather than me doing that.
So I am still doing the same thing. I am still the same role. Market development manager, branch manager. It's the same thing. Different banks call it a different thing. So I am the branch manager at First State Bank. I recently left my position with Level One Bank. No hard feelings or anything, just for personal reasons. However, I did learn quite a bit while working there about working with entrepreneurs. I've been in banking now for 22 years, I believe it is, 23 in February. Started off as a personal banker, worked up to a branch manager, to a district manager at some point, and then came back into the career later on in a branch manager role. And part of our role is to sit down and speak with business customers as well as personal customers and find out what they want to do and how we can help them get there. And I take tremendous pride in assisting entrepreneurs with wherever they want to be. So right now I am at First State Bank. I'm doing a lot of things in the community. I recently awarded a daycare center in Detroit a $10,000 grant that she was completely unexpected. Wow. But that's why it is so important for people to build a relationship with their banker, because listening to her story of why she got started as a daycare provider made me fight for her. And I wrote her bio. She had nothing to do with it. She never even knew I was throwing her hat in the ring. So,
I love it. I love it. So I can't help but to chuckle, Arlena, every time you and I talk, because, I started out in the banking industry.
Correct.
And,
I know that.
You know what I always say to you is that you're a glutton for punishment, man. But,
yeah.
But I'm so glad and excited that, you are a valuable resource in the industry. And, one of the things that caught my attention why I was so excited to bring you to this interview is I've always been a firm believer that having a relationship with a personal banker can be invaluable, but it has to be the right personal banker.
That's correct.
I remember when I started out in the industry 20 years ago, one of the reasons why I was able to climb so fast in a short amount of time I was there is I went the extra mile to learn about what was going on with entrepreneurs. I just figured out early on that you got to go where the money is at. It's with the entrepreneurs. That's where you're gonna get the larger deposits. That's where you get the larger investments. And I made it a point to be as informed as I possibly could about everything going on in the community, every type of instrument, every type of strategy, every type of tool. So when an entrepreneur walks to the bank, I could distinguish myself and get the monies, right? And when I met you, I had probably ran through a good 6-7 personal bankers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd ran through a good 6 to 7 of them. And every time I would talk to other entrepreneurs in the community, your name kept coming up.
Wow.
So I was like, let me just be nosy and see what's going on with her. Okay. And within the first 10, 15 minutes, you had informed me about 3 different strategies I just completely and utterly wasn't aware of, funding sources. What really impressed me about you is I remember I walked to your bank, and this is the question I commonly ask personal bankers to see if they know what's up. And I was like, I'm getting ready to start up a real estate wholesale company, and, I'm looking for funding. And usually most personal bankers will turn you away immediately. It's like, get out of here. We can't help you. And I remember you sat down with me and you just began asking questions about how my business was structured. You began asking questions about, what type of financing I was looking for, what was my credit, all this fun stuff. And then you literally started pointing out the different programs and different things you could actually do to help me indirectly, despite the fact that real estate wasn't hot back then. And I said from that point forward, everybody and their mama needs to know about Arlena Minter.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I really want to help people grow and do whatever it is, accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And I think when you meet a banker who has that mindset, not necessarily what the corporate goals are, but the mindset of I'm here to help, then you've got somebody really valuable. I can do this anywhere. I choose where I want to go because I really enjoy what I do. So
let me ask a question here real quick, Juwan. It's great to meet you, Arlena.
Thank you.
I'm curious for the person who doesn't understand the banking relationship, just getting started in the entrepreneur journey. And I hear you saying, you need to find a personal banker that wants to help. That journey can be daunting because, even in my early journey before I got started and trying to find a bank, I just literally just went with my own bank before I started going to the interview process of loans and that sort of thing with other bankers. Mm-hmm. But what's the process? So do you recommend that a new entrepreneur starts interviewing different bankers and finding out, because personality is important, right? And connection and all of that. So it's a process. It's not just automatic, that this is going to happen, that they meet an Arlena Minter in their journey. So talk about the recommendation that you would give a new entrepreneur in that journey.
A new entrepreneur should seek counsel from other entrepreneurs first, because they know who they would recommend. So I think, Juwan, I believe you met me through Tina Williams.
She was one of the entrepreneurs appointed in your direction.
Okay.
Yep.
So just talking to other entrepreneurs, sometimes you can find out who they bank with and who's their banker. So you hear a lot of people say, well, I bank with, I won't say names, but this big bank. This is where all my stuff is. I'm with this big bank. And then you say, okay, well, who's your banker? And they don't have a clue. They have an 800 number to call if something's going on. They may mention a teller or even a branch manager. But what I found is in the big box banks, because I've done both. I've done both sides. I've done the big box banks. I've done the community banks. I'm more partial now to the community banks for the entrepreneur spirit that we embody. What I've seen in the community banking is that we're a lot more empowered to do things that in the larger banks, they had somebody for this, they had somebody for that. So you never were able to they didn't even want you to talk to people about certain things because that wasn't your job. As the branch manager, your job was just to coach and develop your teams at the bigger banks. That was about it, really. So in the community banking industry, we're wearing every hat. It would not be unfounded that you'll see me on the teller line today, because guess what? My teller called off. So I'm running a window today, or you may see me out in the community. I'm washing cars for a cause, or whatever the case is, I'm everywhere. And I love that. I love that busyness. I hated it. I hated working at one of the large banks that I worked for. I hated working there. I cried every morning and then came to work and put on this Arlena face, but I hated it. I was only there a year and a half. And the reason I hated it is because I could not go out into the community. I could not meet new people. I had to wait for them to come into the door. And then we had a 5-point sales thing that we had to drill these customers into trying to get other products and services, most of which they really didn't need. And if they left your desk without at least 2 to 3 of those items, then you were called into the principal's office and asked, why didn't you sell them this, 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 and this? Instead of, tell me about your customer. What could we have done for them? And I hated it. I hated it. I couldn't wait to get out of there. So when the opportunity came to go to a community bank that was well-rounded in the, community, saying, hey, we want you to go out. We want you, you should be out as much as possible. You should be meeting with clients. You can come in early. You can come in at night. You can work a Sunday if you want to. We don't care, just help the customers. It was just so refreshing, and it was what I needed. So to answer your question, I would say shop around, interview them. If they don't sound like they're in it for anything other than to take your money or to hit a goal, and you'll know in the first 5 minutes of the conversation if this is the person that you want to talk to, or if you want to go somewhere else. Certain banks, that is their culture. I transferred at that one bank I'm talking about. I transferred to 2 other branches in the 1.5 years, thinking that, okay, this is just that manager style, but it wasn't. It was the culture of that particular bank, is that everyone was a number. And if the number didn't sound high enough, they were tossed to the side. Where I try to help, I help anyone, and you can come in there with a negative account, and I'm going to give you the same type of attention that I would give someone who has $1 million in the bank. I'm going to sit here. We're going to talk about, how did you get negative? What can we do to prevent that in the future? Usually it's just something, most people are not trying to flim flam anyone or trying to go negative. No one wants to pay a bank to bank there. But a lot of times they don't know what they could have done to prevent it. So I try to always talk about options. And then that banker should also be willing to recommend outside sources. I've been in the industry, like I said, for 22 years. And because of that, if I can't help you, I guarantee you I know somebody who can. And it doesn't happen. And I get nothing for that. Now, there are some places that, will give people kickbacks and stuff. I've never taken a kickback, and I don't take a kickback because this is my calling. My calling is to help other people and connect people. And if the banker is just, okay, well, the bank says no, because the bank does have guidelines that are very strict, and every bank has theirs. But what else can I do? Who else can I refer you to who can help you get where you're going? And now, and we still keep our relationship solid.
That's awesome. Just a follow-up question too, because it's just really important to kind of understand that process, right, as a new entrepreneur. And I think the recommendation to talk to another entrepreneur and get recommendations from people who are already doing it is awesome. I get a lot of questions too about credit unions versus community banks, and kind of the difference between the two. Could you talk about a little bit about that and what your preference would be for new entrepreneurs?
So, learning, again, being in the industry this long, what I am finding is that credit unions do have a lower credit score requirement, mostly. They're not quite as conventional as banks, not to shoot myself in the foot, but that's really what it is. So they're able to offer rates and things to customers that a lot of the big banks cannot do, or a lot of banks in general cannot do. What I have found, though, is on the business side of things, the entrepreneurial side of things, they're not as willing to lend. I have not seen it. At least that's just my experience. Now, I'm not sure, so I've never worked for a credit union. But even when I talk to people who are working for credit unions, I get a lot of referrals from managers or bankers or lenders over at other credit unions because they're not as inclined to loan to small business. At least that's what I've been told. Now, I'm not sure. But what a lot of people don't know is that their personal score is more important to correct. It is extremely important to correct that personal score, because banks always look at the guarantor and what their score is. And so you get people coming in all the time and they want to know, what about the DUNS number and things like that. And yeah, we'll tap on the DUNS number, but it really isn't that important to us. What's important is, if your business fails, how are we going to get paid? You know, so if you got a history of not paying people back and you're the guarantor, then it's going to be a no. I've turned away businesses that made quite a bit of money, but the guarantor's history was horrible. And I think that if you went to a credit union, if you go to a credit unions do have some products, and not all credit unions, I mean, most credit unions have it, not all banks have it, but they have credit repair type products, such as secured loans and secured credit cards and things that help the customer get their credit score back in order so that they are ready for lending. And a lot of banks don't offer that. But I am finding that the community banks, almost all of us, have that kind of product. And I didn't see that at the big box banks.
So I'm going to hit you with 3 questions.
Sure.
Because a lot of people are not aware of in terms of how to shop guidelines, right? So based on your industry, based on revenues you may be generating, whether you're securing government contracts or whether or not you're just working completely in the private sector, there are certain banks and certain institutions that you want to kind of lean towards, right? And, you know, for me, when I vet a personal banker, I want to know if you know about those things, right? The other thing that caught my attention about you, Arlena, and you know, for me, I really want this episode to be something that individuals can really take and apply, right? When they're dealing with a personal banker. The other thing that caught my attention is, you know, I could sit down in your office and I could find out what was going on in the community. Like for you, we're kind of like my eyes and ears, right? If somebody was going through some BS.com, I'll just leave it at that. or yeah, I'll leave it there. Or if there was something happening in the community, I would oftentimes find that out from you first, right? So, you know, if you could elaborate on that, because I think this really makes all the difference in the world between an order taker that's just sitting out a bank doing whatever versus someone who can really actively support you, right? And then there's this argument that's taking place in the B2B consulting arena, right? So, you know, everyone's pushing everyone towards DMB Paydex Score, right? Getting that up, getting the Paydex Score 80 versus focusing on your personal score, right? There's this misnomer out there that if your Paydex score is at 80, that your personal score doesn't mean amount doesn't mean as much. You can still get things done. And then, of course, you know, there are individuals who are out there preaching, well, what you can do is you can utilize your business credit to improve your personal credit. And I'm not completely opposed to that ideal, but I want to hear it from a banker's perspective, right? Because I know you're having these conversations and these interactions sometimes. So I know I hit you with a lot, but I mean, I think these are the things that really make the difference between whether or not a personal banker can help you out and what bank you should be at versus working with someone who's just an order taker, collecting a check and checking off the boxes.
Okay. So when you're talking about the Paydex score, I hear that quite often from people, oh, my Paydex score is this. Sorry to let you know this, but most banks do not care. We want to know what is the guarantor score. Bottom line, what's your score? And I mean, literally, I closed my office one day because I had gotten so frustrated with this one particular client in general, because he kept telling me, yeah, my business credit and this and that. But I mean, he was on check systems and he had all these other things going on in his personal score. And he was just, yeah, I'm coming over here because you're going to give me, and I just got so frustrated that I closed my door to my office and I said, sit down. Okay, listen, we don't care. Okay, we don't care that you're doing this. What is your personal credit score? We need you to get ideally 680. Sometimes we can do 650 if your financials are good. Sometimes we have programs that are going on. It maybe we'll take a 620. Like we had a program a few years back that if you were a Goldman Sachs graduate, we lowered our credit criteria just as long as the directors wrote us a letter of recommendation. We gave them the leeway. If their financials were good, we could do it. But those programs come and sometimes they go. It's just based on a lot of times, what does the bank need? If the bank needs to do more loans, then sometimes they'll lower the credit criteria to get the traction going. Everything in banking and in credit unions is what's in it for the bank? What is their bottom line? How are they going to make money? How are they going to show people that they're ingrained in the community? So we had a product at one time that didn't even check credit score, and I lost my mind because I said, are you seriously saying you're gonna give people walking in the door $5,000 and not ask them questions? What in the world are you thinking? They had the right idea in mind. They were trying to assist the small business owner who did struggle with credit. I, being who I am, I still did a little bit more digging before I just handed over $5,000, and my particular banking center didn't take any losses. I think we took like 10,000 in losses out of the 80 something, customers that I gave the money to. But there was one branch in particular that had like, of the 100 customers that he did this loan for, I think 90 of them defaulted on $5,000. It was just 5,000. And let's just say he's no longer in banking. It wasn't a good look, because he was, and I think he even had the right intention. He was like, okay, I'm going to give this free money while I can give it. But it's not free, really, because if the person doesn't pay it back, we're screwed, And then it messes up for future programs because they took that same product and they went to an extreme. You could still get it, but now you got to have a 720. Well, before we didn't ask you anything. So I told him, okay, look, let's reel it in. Let's get some kind of happy medium. How about if we say they got to have at least a 640? Because my personal belief is that if a person is really serious about their business and they already know that they need to have a decent credit score, even if they're at 640 and have a few things going on their credit, this shows that there is some attention to the fact that they're trying to make sure that they stay above water. You know what I mean? Not just, okay, well, I'm not even going to look at my score because it doesn't matter. This is the business. It's the same thing, not trying to get off track with what we're talking about, but it's a lot of customers that will open up businesses on paper to hide their personal funds, thinking, well, I owe child support. They won't be able to touch this because this is the business, right? And then they find out the hard way that sometimes, depending on the way that bank account is actually set up, it's snatched. I've seen it. So, I say, I tell them, you know what? You might want to talk to an attorney if that's what you're trying to do, because it might not go well for you. You think you got this money in there and it's gone, so.
Eek. But
I always try to educate my client, which is why, like I said, with Juwan, one of the questions that I came up with when he was talking to me was, what's your score? Okay, this is where we want you to be. Now, these are some things that I know from my personal experience that can help you get there. And so I use a lot of personal stories. So my husband passed away 5 years ago. And yes, I've been in banking a very long time. And shamefully, my credit score was in the toilet. And I never even looked at it because I had no reason to. My husband had great credit, and I really honestly had in my mind, I had no reason to. I wasn't looking to take out any loans. I didn't even, I had everything I need. Well, My husband gets this rare blood cancer that nobody ever even heard of, and it's gone in less than a year.
Oh my goodness.
Cut to, how about 2 weeks later, my car dies. I need a new car. I have a son with special needs, and I can't rely on anyone but myself. It's just me now.
Yeah.
So I go to the dealership, never checked my score, didn't even have Credit Karma. Go to the dealership, and the guy looks at me like, are you serious? Yeah, you make all this money, but your score is 495.
Wow.
Wow.
And I'm advising people on what they need, and I am not looking at my own. So, of course, that was the biggest aha moment. Fortunately, it was around the time of bonuses at work, so I was able to buy me a car to get me by, but it was the biggest aha moment I've ever experienced. So I teach people from that. Now my score is 780, but it took work. I took my credit score. I printed my credit report, and it's something for me. And I tell people this about writing it. Even though you have it printed, write it. I wrote it in a notebook, just a plain spiral notebook, each and every bill. And then I went through, and every single payday, I paid something. I found that a lot of the reason my score was bad was I had co-pays out there I totally forgot about. Somewhere as small as $25. And you mean to tell me my score is jacked up for a $25 co-pay from visiting some little doctor's office or urgent care? So I went through those first, and I got rid of all of those. And immediately I started moving in the right direction. And I did not dispute anything that was actually mine. And I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people tell people is dispute everything, dispute it all, just dispute it all, just keep disputing. Eventually those things come back on there. I have seen that where a customer applied for credit with me and everything looks great. And then when it came time for closing, they have to run another soft credit, report, just to make sure that just everything stayed the same. And all these things are back on their credit report because they disputed it. So they took it off while it was being investigated. But when the company realized, hey, wait a minute, this is their stuff, they put it right back on there. And then the person wasn't able to get it. And they were mad with me because they said, well, I was approved. You told me I was approved. And I was like, yeah, but we anticipate that you're going to keep your score the same. And you didn't, so. But I try to educate my customers as much as possible. If I don't know something, I will quickly say, listen, I don't know, but let me make a phone call. I know somebody that knows, and I think that honesty goes a long way. But so I try to educate people and help them.
So I know there are a couple things that changed in the banking industry involving credit.
Sure.
That a lot of people, there's a million things that changed, right? But so a lot of people are confused about something shows up on my credit report or somebody has some type of fraudulent transaction utilizing one of my credit or debit cards, right? There's some confusion about, well, how soon do I have to jump on this, right? Because there's a rumor going around out there where if you don't do something about it, then 30 days, it's just stuck there. And it doesn't matter whether you did it or not, right? So I run into that a lot, like people not understanding these rules and regulations involving credit and bank cards, right? There is, of course, the confusion the business owners have, and I see this a lot, where they'll have multi-member LLCs. And they just stroll into the bank, right? They got their CID and their EIN number, and they try to open up a checking account. And then there's a rude awakening when they were told, no, you need more than this, right? There are certain documents that we need you to have before we'll even open up a checking account with you. And then, of course, you mentioned it earlier, right? Check systems. And when you are just in the toilet, right, you done jacked over your experience with 2-3 other banks, your credit's in the toilet, you got all these things going on. Just summary, what are some of the steps you think small business owners need to take right out the gate? I know you touched on it already.
Okay.
But what are some additional things people need to be aware of that can make it very difficult for you to have a good relationship with your bank or a personal banker in general?
Well, what you said from the at the end about the check systems thing, all banks use some kind of reporting. So every bank does not use check systems. There's at the bank I'm at now, it's called Onboard Advisor, which is new for me, but it does pull credit. I mean, it doesn't pull actual credit score. It does pull almost like a check system report. Let's see if you owe any banks. I can tell you right now, if we see the word fraud, I don't care what you got to say, what's your thing, we can't help you if we see fraud. Now, what we can do is if it's NSF, non-sufficient funds activity, people make mistakes. Go work it out with the other bank. But what you want them to do is to always have them put on the report that that all monies owed have been paid. You want that statement on there. All monies owed have been paid. Or if they're willing, ask them to remove the record after it's been paid. Some don't, but if at least we see you paid it, then we're fine with it. And then be ready to explain what happened. Sometimes it's so, the story is like, my kid was sick or my mom was sick or it's something like that. Appeal to that person's compassion and say, hey, this is what happened during that time. I didn't realize it until it was too late. And then, you got this one fee for going over, and then a week later they hit me with another fee for it being overdrawn, and then it was $7 a day or whatever the fee is, and it just got so far out of control and I just walked away. What I will tell most people is don't let that get to the point where it's so far out of control. A lot of times if you go into the branch and you talk to the manager, you tell the manager what happened, they'll be able to remove most, if not all of those fees, depending on what that bank's guideline is, because every bank allows a manager so much leeway as far as giving fees back. So, definitely you want to say it up front, because what we don't like is to be blindsided. We're excited. We're all gung ho for you. We're ready to cheer you on, and then we pull your stuff and we see this and we're like, why didn't you tell me you had stuff? Because most people know. They know. You can kind of see it in the eyes sometimes when you say, okay, well, I got to run you through, and what is that check system? But always, just take a look at your report, your check systems report, because some things, I had a young lady who recently, she, with the mobile deposit thing, she deposited a check through mobile deposit. She waited a few days. She didn't see it. So she took it into the bank instead of waiting. Maybe the bank should have explained to her that sometimes mobile deposits don't show right away. It might be 5 days, where if you take it in the bank, you're going to see it in 2. So just depending on the bank and where the check is drawn on and things like that, when she didn't see it, she assumed that she made a mistake, and then she went to the bank and deposited it. And she left the money, then the other check came through, and, they said, well, that was fraud. In their eyes, they thought it was fraud. But she explained that situation to me. So when I pulled her report, it did say fraud on there. But when I looked at the amounts owed and everything, it was just what she said. There was no loss. She left the money in there. So when they went back in and took it, it was no problem. So she didn't have an outstanding balance, but she had already explained this to me. So I was able to put my initials on it and say, hey, customer, explain this. and it's not something so wildly, some created story. I know this was a genuine story, but she had been trying to get an account places and they kept telling her no. And it was like, well, I'm going to the check casher then. And I'm like, girl, let's get you out of the check casher. This was honest mistake. Just know it's going to take a few, that may take a while to come off of your report. Make sure you have your proof that it's been paid, show your bank statements or whatever to show. Juwan, I'm sorry. Give me one of the other questions.
No worries. I know I hit you with quite a bit. So
Yeah.
the other two things that I'm running into when I'm conversing with business owners is understanding the rules and regulations regarding fraudulent transactions. So what ends up happening is somebody gets access to your credit card, someone gets access to your bank card, and they take a spending spree at Target or something, right? It's always simple signs. Like, if you're gonna take somebody's information, why don't you buy a car or something? You're gonna go to Target anyway. This stuff I hear though. But so they go to Target, they run up a couple expenses, and then you find out, right? And with me, I know this is one of my biggest issues. I'll just be transparent. Like several years ago, I had like 15 accounts all over the place. So I was not looking. So stuff happened, right? It was just like, that's fascinating. How did that transpire, right? I remember I got into a dispute with an online company, and I'm not going to mention their name because I promote my business to that company, and they be shadow blocking people when you talk bad about them. I find it out. But anyway, they went in my account and like lifted $1,500 for social media ads, and I only wanted to spend $250. I was like, okay, that's pretty fat, but it was on an account that I didn't pay any attention to, right? But anyway, you hear about those circumstances a lot, right? So what's the time frame that individuals have to resolve situations like that? And then, of course, now you have a lot of people who are setting up multi-member LLCs. You have some people are setting up LLCs, but they have other obligations with other companies, right? So they'll have multiple LLCs. They're trying to create a holding company and open up an account. And oftentimes, what I do is I get the phone call from someone saying, I went here to open up this checking account. They told me no. And then I start asking them, well, do you have your operating agreement? Because good. So you already know where I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
There are certain documents people need to have in place.
Right.
You just can't walk into a bank and say, open up a checking account. I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I just got my EIN and CID, let's go, right? So if you could provide some clarification on those things, I know that'd be like really helpful. Okay.
So let's start with the credit card issue, debit card issue.
Yeah.
So Reg E is actually out there to protect the consumer from taking losses. So Regulation E is the federal regulation that was put in place for how long it, or the dispute process, what you need to do to dispute an item. The responsibility falls on the consumer. What they need to do is when you get your bank statements, if you get them virtually or if you get them in the mail, open them and look at them. And if you see something on there, you need to report it. If you don't, and you go past, usually with businesses, it's anywhere from 30 to 45 days. With individuals, is 60 days. Now that could change because everything is changing. We got a new set of senators and Congress folks. And so these things change over the years. It was a time that you had to report it in 10 days. And then they said, no, wait a minute, you don't even have your statement. And unless you're sitting at home on your online account all the time, you're not gonna, pay attention to that. So they stretched it out. But with businesses, it's typically 30 to 45 days. And that gives you a chance you have to say something right away. And there's a process to it. Some banks, a lot of the bigger banks, you don't have to actually come into the bank and file a case for them to open it up. But a lot of the community banks, smaller banks, require that you have a EFT. It's called an EFT form, electronic funds transfer dispute form. And they'll tell you over the phone, if you call your bank or you call the 800 number and they'll tell you which one you need. but you definitely need to dispute it. If it's not yours, if it's done through online, whatever. Now, at that point, the bank has 10 days to provide you with a provisional credit. With businesses, they don't necessarily have to provide you with the provisional credit. I don't know why that is, but that is the rule. With businesses, they don't have to provide you a provisional credit. Then the bank has from there 45 days to investigate it. If they find that it's true, this is yours, then they don't have to give you the money back, and you will have to go after that merchant yourself via small claims court, whatever you have to do. And it's really difficult when it's an online thing to get the money back. With the consumer though, within 10 days, sometimes that same day, we can give you the money back as a provisional credit while we're still investigating it. But if you don't dispute it and you just say, well, you know what, forget it, I'm just not going to pay it. Okay, guess what? It's going to end up on check systems. And in some cases, it's going to end up on your credit report that you left this bank on an outstanding balance, which is terrible because all you have to do is pick up the phone and call somebody. Somebody will tell you how to go about doing a dispute. But if anyone ever wants to know, the regulation is, again, Reg E, and you can Google it and read it, and it tells you the guidelines. And then if someone just tries not to pay you or tries not to help you with the dispute, then, you can say, hey, wait, this is Reg E. I have told people in my family, listen, you go back in there and you tell that manager per Reg E, and then they go in there and all of a sudden someone's helping you, that some people can be just have their own biases and decide that. If after they do the dispute and the investigation comes back, a lot of times we'll get in writing something saying that this person authorized us on this day, and here it is. Then we have to pull the provisional credit back. And again, at that point, you will have to go after the merchant yourself. It used to be a time if the person put their PIN number in their wallet, if they tell you, my PIN number was on the back, I wrote it on the back of the card so I wouldn't forget it, or my PIN number was in my wallet next to the card, then we couldn't even take the dispute. That's no longer the case. Reg E, the new reg part of Reg E is, doesn't matter. Did you say use my card? If you didn't say it, that's fine. We can still take the case. Now, it's still up to the investigation on if we're going to be able to give you the money back, but it will help. We'll try to get you back the money. We really want to try to help you get the money back, be made whole. If you lose your debit card, report it lost or stolen as soon as you recognize it. Most of the banks now have something on their app where you can just lock the card. Right? Yeah. I was literally at the store the other day and looked in my wallet for one of my bank cards and didn't see it. And I went on my app and locked the card. Now it was at home, but at the time I didn't know where it was. I couldn't remember the last time I used it. And I was like, hey, this card's missing. Locked it, came home. When I found the card, I unlocked it. So banks are trying to make it a lot more convenient for the person to lock the card up if they as soon as they discover the card's missing, lock it, and then of course check and see if you have any charges. Filing a police report right away if you know it was stolen, but keep in mind, if during the investigation they discover that it's your family member or something, we're going to get paid back. We're going to prosecute whoever. So, just know we will prosecute that person. If we find out the person who did it, we're going to prosecute them. So your second question about the Multimember LLC, you're so right, Juan, a lot changed. You cannot just walk in a bank with your EIN letter and your LARA and say, I'm opening a business account. We are going to do some digging. So the first thing I would tell you is make sure all your stuff matches, because that's going to raise an eyebrow in the first place. So if your business is if your business is in a residential area, in your home, working from home, if you're working, if your business is set up in your house, the address on that LERA should be your address. The address on your EIN letter should be your address. You can have a PO box, but we need to know the physical address where the business is being conducted. And we get a lot of people get really angry with us because they put on the LERA a PO box, and then we can't really use it. Then that's when, even if they're a single member LLC, we're going to need an operating agreement that has it written out that this is your physical address. So, because we need to know where you're doing the business. And we need to know what kind of business. And we hear people say, oh, I do some of everything. Okay, name some, because these are things that the government requires. We ask these questions. We're not being mean. We're not being nosy. We need to know what you're doing, because we have to monitor accounts. And I know sometimes people get really angry and it's none of your business. Well, kind of is, because the government says it's our business to know what you're doing with this business. And that's all derived from the September 11th attacks. Most of the, people know about the US Patriot Act as far as identification, but what they don't know is that there were a lot of dummy accounts set up. And there was a lot of money was being filtered through these fake businesses, fake accounts. And so it is the responsibility of the bank to know your business. If it's a multi-member LLC, we need an operating agreement. We don't care if you started it and you just put your mother and brother on there just in case something happens to you. We need an operating agreement stating who can open the account, who is responsible for the transactions, who's responsible for all the funds that's in the account. We have to have that now. If it's an incorporation, we need bylaws. In those bylaws, if on the bylaws, and most standardly written bylaws shows that the treasurer is responsible for maintaining balances and stuff in the account, guess what? Your treasurer needs to be on that account.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come in and they're like, but this is my business and this is you mean to tell me, yep. This is your document. A lot of people just say, okay, well, I printed it up. I saw a template online. Know what you printing up, because we have to read them. We have to read them. And guess what? If we miss something, when we send it in, when we finish and open your account, we send it all up to, compliance, and they take a different look with an even finer tooth comb, and they will close it and say, hey, send that customer a check. Their stuff isn't right. And the reason we do this is because we have had in the past where someone came and they opened up a business account and they're taking contracts or whatever, and the money is all under that one person is doing all the transactions, but there's other people there. And the other people have no idea what's going on with the money until it's all gone, or what have you. We recently ran into a situation with a client that had a partner, and because of COVID, everything was done remotely. So yeah, we did a Zoom call with the partner to identify them. Everything was totally different than, the norm. We would normally ask both parties come in and things like that. Well, one was here, one was there. Plus we're trying to limit contact, all those kinds of things. And come to find out, there was all this money that was stolen. So we had to close everything down, and, there was some, forgeries going on. We didn't have anything to do with it, but we said, hey, listen, because it became a he say, she say conversation. And it was like, listen, how about this? All of y'all get out. So we closed the accounts down and all their personal accounts. And coincidentally, it was sad because that particular company was a janitorial service that even serviced some of our branches, and they lost their contract because we don't know what other shady stuff you guys might have going on. And you're coming in the bank after hours. So now you're gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I was going to ask even more questions about
documentation.
The same lines about those kind of, things you have to have when you walk into the office for a loan as a business owner, just entrepreneur, even solopreneur, LLC, like the basic things. I think people they don't get it, you know what I mean? And so just given that like quick, dry and dirty.
So here's the quickest thing is, one, you should be in business at least 2 years. Most banks will not fund a startup. So in business, 2 years. We need to see 2 years worth of financials. Okay. You definitely need to have your EIN letter. You definitely need to have your LIRA. Although we can look that up. If you don't have that, that's not a big deal. We can, because we're going to look it up anyway and make sure you're in good standing. That's one of the biggest things with a lot of people is they open their business online because their friend told them, hey, it's so easy. You can do it by yourself. Just go ahead and go on there and set it up. You don't have to pay anybody. But they never maintain it. They don't go back and do their annual reports and pay that $25. And it shows open but not in good standing. We won't open an account for you. We won't do any business with you if you're not in good standing. We're gonna need the last 2 years, full business and full personal tax return with all your schedules. We're going to need a current profit and loss statement. If you have some 1099s that you pay your employees with, we need to see those too sometimes, just so we can see, are you actually paying people or, not, if you have ARs and APs, and most people do, we need to see that, your current accounts receivables and accounts payable. And what are your projections? So those are the major things that we need to see coming in the door.
And what about a business plan?
Just depends on what it is you're trying to do. So a business plan, yes, we'll take it, but it's not necessarily required all the time, just depending on what you're doing. I say if you have one, definitely bring it, because we want to know what direction you're going in. If it's a product that you're selling or something like that, then we're going to want to check out where you're selling it out of. If you have a storefront, we want to see that facility. We want to see that is not just a shell. So we're going to we might just make a surprise visit. I've done that and nobody was in the building. It's vacant. But, they had it all listed everywhere. And I got there and I was like, wow. So guess what I had to do? I had to take pictures to show this was a vacant building and send it up.
Oh, wow.
And say, hey, nobody's in here. What are they talking about? They've been here 5 years, whatever. This place looks like it's condemned,
Oh my goodness.
So we're going to visit. Let me think what else.
You're laughing, Joanne.
It's happened. Seriously, it happened. It was so funny because I was grabbing some lunch and one of the lenders from one of the other offices said, hey, they told me you were going to be over in Dearborn. Ride by here and see if this, and go tell that person. I've been trying to get them on the phone. They're not answering. I was like, okay, we rolled by. Nothing's there. It's just a building. Nothing's there. I said, did you check it out before you sent them the loan? No. Okay, well, guess what? You're screwed. Nobody in this building. So, those are the first things that at least will make us start talking to you. Okay. Now there's things on the profit and loss statement. So if it shows where it doesn't look like you made a lot of profit, don't concern yourself so much with that, because we're going to look through and see what did you, where the losses are and what did you do? What happened here? Have your story ready, because we want to know why you started the business, what compelled to take this big leap of faith. You know, hey, you were an engineer at Ford and now you're baking cookies. What made you switch up? You know, so we want to know your story, because we'll be more passionate about trying to help you get what you need. You know.
Yeah, I think that statement of know your story crosses every subject, like in anything that you're doing as a business owner.
Correct.
Like whether, it's the elevator pitch when you meet somebody, or whether it's, you're trying to go and do a co-working agreement somewhere, that story is so important. And I don't think people realize, understand in banking, you need to be able to tell that story to the
yes. And don't say it like you're reading an Easter speech, because we want to know the passion. If you don't have passion about what you're doing, we're not going to be as excited. I'll say that. That's not to say that we won't still into you, but you might not get the same push. You understand what I'm saying? We might go strictly off of what we see. There's been times when we were going to decline a loan, and I literally called the head of business lending and said, listen, let me tell you this girl's story. I know their score is a little shallow, but let me tell you this story. Can we do anything for him? And well, Arlena, shoot, since you like him so much, okay, well, we'll start him off with this and let's talk to him next year.
That's awesome.
So, all right. So this is another one.
Okay.
And right now I'm just throwing you softballs. I think you know that at this point, but
I know you are.
But
because I know you.
So, during this pandemic, you had a lot of people who were highly upset because they were attempting to qualify and get applications submitted for the EIDL, PPP monies. There's a million grants out there circulating right now. And of course, what I kept hearing time and time again was, well, the bank messed me over. The bank messed me over. They're discriminating. And me coming from the banking industry, I kind of know to dig a little bit deeper, right? And something I've tried to explain to business owners is, look, I know, and let me put this out there, Arlena's never done this to me, but I had a relationship with a personal banker where I was notorious for losing my EIN. I just kept losing it. And this was before I did everything electronically. So it was all handwritten notes and all that fun stuff. I'd shred stuff, lose it. And something as simple as calling the bank and saying, look, I need to perform a transaction. I need my EIN. And if I didn't have a relationship with that personal banker, I just would have been SOL. I just wouldn't have gotten my stuff done, right? Not to say you should do that, but I mean, it gives people a little bit of insight into why having a relationship with a person is so important, right? But what I found 9 times out of 10 was people who weren't able to complete the applications at the time is they never had a relationship with a personal banker. I know when I was in the industry, I had a laundry list of 100 business owners. They were like my pet business owners. And if you were on that list, when I found out about a particular investment that was taking place, I found out about a grant that was available, if I found out the business was liquidating, hey, you should run over there and have a conversation with them. There might be some opportunities. I had my list, right? And, to the extent to which you can, I mean, quite frankly, you're selling yourself, right? I mean, why do you want to be on Arlena Mentor's list? And why do you want to be on any personal banker's list? What can you do to really make that relationship fruitful and bountiful for a business owner?
So I say Arlena's. And the reason you want to be on Arlena's list is because Arlena is going to do everything possible to make sure you don't miss out on opportunities. As I hear of them, I'm going to call you. Like, again, I just got somebody a grant who didn't even expect it, because I was like, we were just meeting, just having a conversation. And she was telling me that she was struggling to get paid from the state of Michigan now that the daycare center is back open. So she's been paying her employees out of her personal checking account to make sure that they still come to work, because we know right now, a lot of people just don't want to work because they can get so much in unemployment. But she started paying them out of her pocket. And I was like, okay. So when I heard about this grant, I didn't even tell her. I just was like, okay, boop, boop, boop. And it's funny because my son had surgery last week and they called her randomly and said, you're Arlena's client? Yes. We just want you to know Arlena put in an application for you to get this grant. You want it. It's $10,000. And She called me yesterday, literally screaming on the phone. And I was like, listen, you don't always know what I'm doing. But I just know, even if I'm not at work, I'm at work. Yeah. So with the PPP, it was really heartbreaking. So we all know what happened when the first round first came out. They opened up on April 1st. Now, mind you, my branch was in quarantine. We were in quarantine because we had all been exposed. My father had it. I brought it to where everybody was exposed. They shut us down, shut the branch down for 2 weeks to clean it. We came back on the first day that the applications started. And we're like, we didn't even know what we were doing. We literally, I said, everybody get to work at 7. But we all came in at 7. We did a flash, quick course training. And then it was like, when we opened at 9, we were running. And we stayed there every day till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And it was heartbreaking because we put all these applications in and we're looking because we could see the number of, we're number 120, we're number 122 or whatever. And then we saw people, because we could see the list of people getting approved who were maybe number 400. And we were like, what the heck is this? Not to say anything bad, but there was some flim flam stuff going on on that one. Oh, yeah. That's the truth. I know that. And we were very disappointed. And the Arlena, Juwan, called it out. I literally went to one of our executive members and said, what the heck is this? I put this in here and this over here got approved. And mine was in at 9 o'clock this morning, and this one didn't come in until 2 days later. How are you guys making these decisions? This isn't fair. And I'm disappointed in you. And I think that really, I said, this is the first time I've been ashamed to be here. And I think that resonated because I was like, hey, this is not right. What's going on here? They gave me their little excuses. I have my own theories, but I digress. They said, well, it's going to be refunded. I promise you, all your people on your list will be the first people funded. And they were. So thank God for that. All of the people who I had gotten the applications in for, each one of them, not only one person didn't get approved for the PPP, and it was their own fault. They cannot take a half completed application. You had to support what you're asking for because we asked for certain documents. And if you didn't get it to us, let me just say this. Easter, I was working. Everybody else was enjoying their Easter dinner. And I'm on my cell phone. And then one of the clients I couldn't catch. So I had to go downtown to the branch, log into the computer and try to find his alternate phone numbers to say, hey, you need to sign your papers. Because once the SBA gives us the money, the bank only had 5 days to fund. So from the day that when they say, okay, here, Alina, you're getting this much. And the bank says, okay, this is, we see the SBA number says it's approved. We had 5 days to get at the beginning. Now they changed it towards the end, but we only had 5 days. The clock started ticking immediately from that approval. If we didn't get you to sign your closing docs in that 5 days and fund you, it was gone. So when you heard a lot of people say, well, the bank messed over me, did they really, or did you not contact, or did you provide the right contact numbers? Even if it's your secretary, then give us your secretary's number. If it's your personal, if you're not in the office, don't give me your office number. Give me your cell. I got to get you on the phone because we're sending this stuff DocuSign and we need you to sign it now and get it over, get it on over there. Because if we don't, you're going to lose the money. And, and once it's gone, it was really hard for that person to get it back because they would say, oh, well, we gave it to you and you didn't get it. We figured you didn't need it. That's what the SBA's thought was. As far as the EIDL was concerned, we didn't work with those. We had nothing to do with the EIDL. That was something that the customer could apply for on their own. And they really didn't even want us giving any direction on that because, that wasn't where we were we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be strictly looking at the PPP and assisting with that.
Mhm.
And the last round of PPPs, everything was streamlined. So it took a lot of the people in the branches out of the equation. Everything, when it first came out, it was a lot of paper, because it came out of nowhere and we weren't prepared. The second round, the most recent round, everything was electronic and it was going through like that. So what a lot of people don't know too is that the bank received a percentage of your money as a thank you, in a sense, from the SBA for doing these loans for the person, doing the paperwork or whatever. Which is why I believe there were some things that were approved at the beginning that shouldn't have been approved before the other people. I think they were trying to get that big bang, which is why I did like when they changed it, because they changed it and said, okay, if you make this amount or less, you're getting top priority, which eliminated that foolishness.
So we're getting here towards the end, but we do have a few questions that we always ask our guests before we leave. So I'm going to start with the first one. And it would be, if you could name what your superpower would be, what would that be?
I guess my superpower is building relationships. Honestly, everywhere I go, it's hilarious because my husband used to get mad and think I was a flirt or something, because everywhere I went, I knew somebody. How you know him? It was like, oh, I met him over here. So I enjoy being around people. You hear that phrase, I'm a people person. I really am, in a sense. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy helping people. And I just enjoy what I do. I really do enjoy what I do. I don't think I could do anything beyond this, except for, I have a little personal side hustle, but unless that hustle turns into a thriving business, which I'm not looking to do right away, this is what I'll be doing.
That'll be our next episode with you.
Right.
Okay.
Now I want to know what the side hustle is.
Stay tuned. It's actually building very quickly, and it's hilarious to me, because I'm like, I didn't expect this big push all of a sudden.
We'll have to have you back for that one.
Right.
Okay.
And if there's one very important lesson that you want to leave our listening audience with, regarding everything you went through today, which is such valuable information, what would that be?
I would say know your numbers. So when I say know your numbers, know your credit score, know your partner's credit score, know how much you actually made. Don't tell me you made $2 million, but your thing is showing negative 5,000. Know your numbers, because it is so important to know exactly where you are, where you stand, and where the direction you're going in.
Absolutely. Arlena, what is the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to connect with you, if they want to start that interview process to make you their personal banker? What is the best way?
It would be nice if I had pulled my business cards over here.
It's new.
I'm looking and I'm like, do I have them over here? No. Oh my goodness, because I'm at home. Let me look real fast. But you can email me at amentor@FSB Frank S, F like Frank, S like Sam, B like bank, at FSB.bank.
Perfect.
You can definitely email me there.
That's easy way.
And then I can make sure Jawan or someone has my phone number to get in touch with me. If you need to talk to me directly.
We'll put those in the show notes so that people can reach out to you for sure.
Okay.
But thank you again, Arlena. We really appreciate you joining us here today. It really was, I'd say, a crash course for, diving into this as well. We're going to be continuing the conversation inside the NextOppSocial After Show group on Facebook. We invite everyone watching to join us there. The link is in our description here, or head to Facebook, go to our NextOppSocial page, click community, and we'll be happy to have you inside. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube or visit our website at nextoppsocial.com to learn more about everything we do. And if you love today's episode, if you learned a lot from today's episode like we did, we encourage you to share it with someone who can also gain value from this as well. Thank you again, Arlena.
You're welcome. You're welcome.